Worcester City Councilor at Large Tu Nguyen taking a month-long mental health break. Nguyen uses the pronouns they, them, and
I really wished I felt safe enough to show up on the council floor, but I don't.
Just when I thought I'd seen it all, this non-binary politician took things to a new low. A non-binary politician in Massachusetts is melting down in spectacular fashion. We're going to break this down and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, across our politics, and across our media, all from an independent perspective. As you guys can see, I'm still on the road, still in a hotel, but I will be back in my normal setup on Monday, and I still wanted to bring you guys a show. So we're going to do a fun roundup for Friday of the craziest woke takes and meltdowns of the week. And up first, we've got to turn to my home state of Massachusetts because a non-binary city council member is melting down in truly extraordinary fashion and finessing a month-long vacation using woke victimhood, I guess. Take a listen to some local news reporting.
Worcester City Councilor at Large Tu Nguyen taking a month-long mental health break, accusing the mayor and council of a toxic culture. Nguyen uses the pronouns they, them, and says it's not safe to show up to meetings in person.
I really wished I felt safe enough to show up on the council floor, but I don't.
Last night, when talking about remote participation, Nguyen accused the mayor and another councillor, Kathleen Toomey, of using the wrong pronouns. Nguyen also says Councillor Candy Merrow Carlson repeatedly called them it.
I have faced transphobia with being misgendered and recently learned that I have been dehumanized to a point where I'm being referred to as it by my colleagues on this council.
Councillor Toomey says early on when the councillor was elected, I did make an honest error in addressing the councillor and may have done so a few times, for which I apologized. There has never been any intentional or consistent misgendering. I have been mindful to address the councillor respectfully in the manner in which they identify over the past 3 years. Now, Councillor Merrow Carlson telling us, while I do not recall making the statements in question, I acknowledge that it was a challenging and emotional week where difficult conversations took place. These claims, however, misrepresent my character, my record, and the values I have consistently upheld. We did reach out to the mayor, and we also reached out to Councillor Nguyen, but did not hear back from either. The city manager's office confirms an investigation is underway.
Well, we better hope that this DEI investigation gets to the bottom of things and stops this egregious war crime from taking place in Massachusetts. I mean, what's so funny to me about this is I'm from Massachusetts. I know the politics there. The people involved here are all Democrats, I believe, and at least some of them are moderate Democrats. They're not necessarily far left, but like this is not a Republican Christian city council bullying this poor they, them. No, this is moderate Democrats trying to get to business, trying to do work. And this person is playing a victim script because they want unlimited vacation time and not to do the job that they were elected to do. Give me a break, babe. This is ridiculous. I mean, we've got reporting here from NBC Boston. According to the mayor, Councillor Nguyen has missed half of the traffic and parking subcommittee meetings and has not held a meeting for the public service and transportation subcommittee that they chair. Failing to participate in these essential responsibilities is unacceptable. I will not apologize for holding myself and my colleagues accountable to the responsibilities entrusted to us by the people we serve. Being available, accessible, and engaged is a fundamental expectation of our roles, and it is critical to the success of the city. So this chick just literally doesn't want to do her job. She literally just wants, I guess, the taxpayer-funded salary, but to not have to show up to work. And so she's spinning out, crashing out like this, throwing a tantrum, and trying to claim that it's unsafe at work in this Democrat-dominated city council because a couple people may have misgendered her with her not legitimate pronouns. They, them, and non-binary is not legitimate. I wouldn't use it if I was her colleague. But even then, there's a lot of dispute about how much misgendering actually happened. It sounds from what I've read about this, like this was a couple years ago. A few times people misspoke, apologized for it, and moved on. These people aren't aggressively misgendering her at every opportunity, which even then, she should still do her job and she wouldn't be unsafe. But like, that's not even the situation. This chick is trying to exploit old allegations of a couple misgenders that happened to just not do her job, just not show up to work. It's just everything about woke victim politics perfectly encapsulated in one ridiculous and maddening story. And I hate this strain of safetyism that has infected so much of the left and so much of the LGBT community. You are not physically or emotionally unsafe simply because somebody doesn't refer to you exactly how you want to be referred to. The it thing is kind of funny to me because I wouldn't call someone it if that's not how they want to be called on purpose. But like, is it really that much more dehumanizing than them and they? Like, either way, it's kind of these neutral, like non-normal pronoun. It's like, it's really that's so offensive and harmful. I mean, some neo-pronoun people want to be called it or want to be called watermelon. So it's like kind of hard for people to keep up. Even pro-LGBTQ Democrats, like the colleagues that she's so mad at and thinks are so evil and bigoted, apparently, that she can't even be in the same room with them without being unsafe. It's ridiculous because even if there was a lot of misgendering going on, grow up. You're an adult. You got to have basic thick skin to work with people who might not fully agree with you and might not constantly affirm all of your beliefs and delulu. That's not the end of the world. And if you can't get up and go to work and do your job because somebody might say something you don't agree with, you need help. You shouldn't be in a position of power. You shouldn't be an elected representative responsible for an entire city's well-being. You should be in remedial therapy, working on the fact that you have the emotional resilience of a toddler. And I don't say that as an insult. I say that as genuinely like, you need to work on you because that's a problem. And the problem is not the people around you. The problem is internal. And I just think it's crazy. I mean, how is anyone standing for this? How are standards actually that low in progressive places like Massachusetts where somebody can pull this kind of stunt? And I think everybody must be so afraid of being called a bigot because all these other officials, like, they clarify, no, I'm not misgendering her. I'm not being mean. I promise. I'm an ally. Like, no, somebody should put out a statement that says, shut up, do your job, or resign. Nobody feels bad for you. You're not unsafe. Cope. Be an adult. And if you're not capable of that, you need to resign your position because you're not capable of meeting the needs of your constituents and the people that entrusted you with a position of power. The standards in our society are just on the floor, especially when it comes to a marginalized community like non-binary. And that's actually condescending and insulting. We should have the same expectations for everybody, no matter what group they're a part of, no matter what box they check off on the census. It doesn't matter. We should still expect people to do the bare minimum, to go to work, to interact with people who might not fully agree with them on everything and do their job. Am I crazy? Am I the one who's like hit the crack pipe too many times here? Or are they in the wrong? Are they wildin'? Because I feel like I'm interacting with a different species. First off, what does this have to do with me as a gay man and my community and my rights? Like, somebody who thinks they're not a female, even though they're a female, but then melts down if other people a couple of years ago, a few times, referred to them incorrectly and refuses to do their job. Like, please don't tie that to me. I don't see what that has to do with me, but we've all been lumped together in this category. Clearly, I think, in error and to our own detriment. But yeah, I just feel like I've taken crazy pills because the fact that this kind of thing happens and then people are kind of dancing around it, like afraid to point out how insane it is because they don't want to offend somebody. You gotta stop. Democrats, even moderates, even ones who are trying to be nice, you gotta grow a spine at some point and crack down on the crazies on your side, because if you don't, they're going to keep driving y'all off a cliff. But what do you guys think of this story? Do you sympathize with our non-binary friend here? Let me know in the comments. I do read the comments and I always take the time to read them and reply to a few of them. And do hit that like button if you haven't yet, and do make sure you're subscribed. Now, we got to go over to TikTok for another insane meltdown because Trump broke this man's brain. Take a listen to this TikTok warning people to flee the United States while they still can before Inauguration Day.
I need to tell you something. You're not going to necessarily like this. Some of you need to leave. You need to leave. You need to leave the United States. You don't have months. Some of you might have weeks. Maybe. Some of you have spent the last 2 months pretending like this is not happening, like it's not coming, but it is coming. America is about to become a Christian nationalist fascist dictatorship. And some of you have been waiting for other people to stop this from happening. But it's happening.
Oh my. He seems stable and well-adjusted. I mean, look, I have my criticisms of Trump, and there are going to be some things in this next administration I support, some things I don't support, and I'll criticize, and who knows, we'll have to see how it goes. But we're not going to become a Christian fascist dictatorship. And if you actually think that, you need to touch grass. Okay, Trump was president once, and we didn't have that. In fact, I don't know, maybe I missed that part of 2017 to 2020 where we went into The Handmaid's Tale or whatever. Like, how can you have already done something, had this not happen, none of this hysteria come true, and yet it's happening again, and this time it will, guys? Like, give it a rest. And I don't know about you, but typically when I imagine a Christian fascist dictatorship, I don't imagine them nominating openly gay, married father for one of their top positions in the administration, which Trump just did with Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary. Like, you could say a lot of things about Trump, but it's just not, this is just not real. Like, this is just delusional. It's just hysterical. And people don't need to flee the country. What? I mean, maybe they should move to a blue state if they want to make sure that they continue to have progressive policies they live under, but I can't think of anybody who needs to flee the country because of Trump. Like, that's ridiculous. But if you really want to, I've said this for a long time, I think we should provide taxpayer-funded one-way tickets out of the country to left-wing people who hate America, who want to go, be my guest, just don't let the door hit you, and in exchange for the free first-class ticket funded by taxpayers, you just have to renounce your citizenship, which we will then give to a highly skilled, hardworking immigrant who loves America and wants to come here. To me, best of both worlds. You can escape your Christian fascist dictatorship, and we can get somebody who actually has a useful skill other than making hysterical TikToks. But this video, there's a lot more, so buckle up.
And it's not necessarily Trump that you should be worried about. It is the people around Trump that you need to be worried about. These people have lists. These people have agendas. These people have enemies. Some of you are enemies. And some of you need to leave.
You hear that, guys? They have lists. I wonder if I'm on any of these lists. To me, it's the self-importance for me. Like, Donald Trump and his allies do not care about a couple randos on TikTok who yap insane left-wing propaganda. They are probably going to do some things where they're going after people, but they're not coming for TikTokers, okay? They don't care about you. You're not that important. You're not that special. And thankfully, we also live in a country with a First Amendment. So if somehow they were trying to crack down on you or arrest you because of something you posted on TikTok, that would not stand. And I would defend your rights if that were to happen, but I don't think it will. And I think some of these people are suffering from delusions of grandeur.
The thing is, by the time you realize that you have to leave, by the time you realize that you have to leave now, you may not be able to. You know, ostensibly we talk about the border wall and the border closing and closing the border, and it's easy to sort of imagine that that's just to prevent bad people from getting in, or quote unquote bad people from getting in. But the wall, the border, whatever you want to call it, is also going to prevent you from leaving. And if it doesn't, countries are not going to take former American citizens in 2 years or in 3 years when things are really, really...
Holy moly, the Delulu is off the charts with this one. He really just suggested that the border wall, that if Trump builds it finally in full, is going to be keeping us from leaving the country. That's not a thing. And also, most people wouldn't be going to Mexico or to South America. They'd be going to Canada, to Europe. people will always be allowed to get on an airplane and leave America. This is not a thing. He's not going to stop you from leaving. Like, you're just, I don't know, working yourself up for no reason. And countries would absolutely want to take Americans, at least Americans with skills and wealth and assets. So maybe not random socialist TikTok crazies like this dude, but most Americans, if they truly wanted to leave, yeah, a lot of places would welcome them because they would want new, wealthy, talented people coming into their country. That's just not true. In fact, you can go a lot of places with an American passport, and it's far easier to emigrate out of the US to many countries overseas than it is to vice versa. Come here. I mean, this guy just doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's scaring people with just non-reality hypothetical scenarios that aren't realistic or true. I don't know what to say beyond holy crap. The last bit of this is actually the most delulu of all.
So if you have a feeling that you're not going to be safe, or you're an immigrant, or you're gay, or you're a woman, and you feel like the worst part of your gut that's telling you have to go is actually telling you the truth, you need to start looking at that now. I know that it's very hard and can be very expensive, and there are people who can't afford to leave, but you need to try to figure a way out. Not everyone needs to leave, but some of us need to leave.
My man's really just told us that gays need to flee the country. Dude, touch grass. Trump is a lot of things, but he is not particularly anti-gay. He is fine with gay marriage. He's had gay weddings at Mar-a-Lago. He's appointing the highest ranking ever gay official to the United States federal government. He's not going to do anything to gay people, and gays don't need to flee the country. This is just delusional hysteria land. And same with women. I mean, obviously there may be some things about abortion or other reproductive issues that people may disagree with or strongly object to, but if they're in blue states, not much is probably going to change for them. And if not, then they're in states where the majority of people will support those policies. So they might not be thrilled with it, but it's not dystopian. I mean, women are still going to just go about their lives every day. He's not going to crack down on women's rights. This is just really weird stuff. And I feel like this hyperbole and this hysteria just totally discredits them from, I'm never going to listen to anything this guy says again. If he has some criticisms of Trump or some disagreements with his policies or thinks he's doing something really bad, I'm going to be like, look, this dude's clearly a meth head. I can't trust anything he's saying. And that's a shame for his own sake and for the sake of others like him, because Donald Trump is not a perfect man. His policies are not all good and all correct. And I'm sure he'll do some things that are harmful or misguided. And we need people to actually push back and kind of steer. Any politician needs this, right? We need two sides in our country pushing back on the excesses and extremes of the other. But when one of those sides becomes hysterical, then they lose that ability to kind of sharpen and hone the other side and make sure that they're keeping them in check, because people tune out and stop taking them seriously. And we've seen this with liberal media hosts who go over the top with their criticisms and who melt down all the time and push insane hyperbole and misinformation about Trump. And we've seen this with online commentators. So there's not a lot of credibility left for Trump critics. I think the most serious and credible ones at this point are ones who are on the right of center spectrum and agree with him sometimes, but maybe not always, like myself, who push back on some of his things, but aren't totally broken by him. I mean, Trump has broken some of these people on the internet. And for that, at least, my heart goes out to them, because it's bleak out here. It's getting bleak out here. But what do you guys think of this fascinating video? Do let me know in the comments section. I do love to read you guys' thoughts in the comments, and do hit that like button if you haven't yet. Now, we're going to run through some of the craziest and most unhinged woke tweets of the week. Buckle up and brace yourself, because some of these are real doozies. Up first, one person wrote, "When white people are talking about good old days, they are telling you that they miss apartheid." Some of us might just mean back when eggs and bread were affordable, like a few years ago. Some people might even mean the 80s or the 90s or even the early aughts, none of which had apartheid. I don't know about y'all, but I just have not met a white person who waxes poetic about the good old days of segregation. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like that's probably not a correct assessment of what most white people mean when they say something like that. Oh, but buckle up and keep on board in the Delulu train with me today, guys, because this next post from left-wing trans activist Alejandro Caraballo reads, "If we're still allowed to vote in 2028, excuse me, what? These people are so hysterical. I will crawl through broken glass to vote, volunteer, and donate to any Dem who promises to throw all the oligarchs in prison. $1,000 donations for every time they say they'll lock up Elon Musk. Max donations for every time they say they'll send every single one of these whiny little shits to Guantanamo. Zuck, Musk, Bezos, Andreessen, Thiel, Altman, all of them. I don't care. I'm for destroying the oligarchy by any means necessary platform." That's a lot to unpack. First off, babe, you must be quite wealthy, okay? As you would put it, the privilege is off the charts, because if you can just be throwing around $1,000 like this, you get 1,000, you get 1,000, you get 1,000, times must be pretty good in trans activist land, okay? And it's so funny to me how a person like this somehow sees themselves as a savior of democracy, but also wants to lock up all the bad people they don't like. The math there is not mathing, cupcake. And I didn't realize that progressives supported Guantanamo Bay now. I think most don't, but apparently this Delulu one does. It's like, yeah, I'm against torture. I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU. Except for those rich people, throw them in Guantanamo. You might actually be a hypocrite and a fraud. Up next, this tweet from left-wing commentator Crystal Ball, where she simply wrote, "Democracy and capitalism are incompatible," in response to a news story about how Jeff Bezos can legally give the Trumps $40 million. So what's funny about this take is that it's actually kind of the opposite of reality. When you look at, and I'll put a graph on screen, when you look at how democratic a society is and then how free their economy is in terms of how capitalistic, how free market, these two have a positive correlation, meaning that freer countries with freer economies are more democratic, and countries with more government-controlled, more socialist economies tend to have less democracy and more authoritarianism. There's a very clear trend here going in one direction, though you can find outlier cases in either case. And the reason that is that in a free market capitalist economy, the means of production and people's income isn't controlled by the government. But in a left-wing socialistic system with a massively powerful government that controls the economy, it's a lot easier for them to repress people or violate democratic norms or establish themselves as authoritarians because they control people's livelihoods. Cute tweet, though. This next post was incredibly creepy. If you're a cis man, one of the best things you can do for trans women is using the women's bathroom. If cis men were to cultivate a complete disregard for the bathroom stall sign, that avenue of gendered segregation in public life would become increasingly hard to enforce. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that full-grown men going into the women's bathroom is a bad idea. And I'm also gonna add that while I think genuinely transsexual people who've transitioned should be accommodated and allowed to live their best lives and blend in, some degree of gendered segregation in society between men and women, broadly speaking, is not a bad thing. Up next, this tweet reads, "The way men all seem to automatically know how to access the dark web has always been slightly unsettling to me. I'm sorry, but what kind of men do you talk to? What kind of men do you hang out with? I have never accessed the dark web. I wouldn't begin to know how, and I don't think I know anyone who would." So much of the gender discourse on the internet is just from people who seem to have extremely skewed perceptions of populations. Maybe they have very strange crowds they run in or whatever. This next tweet is a good one. The original post asks, "What opinion would you defend until your last breath?" And this person said, "White people are the cause of every problem we have in the world." Bruh. It's giving woke Hitler. Now, this one actually relates to something we talked about on the podcast maybe last week. The news story shared here is about a Seattle waffle shop owner who shut down their business over the new $20 a plus minimum wage law, who cried every day. And some trans Twitter activists tweeted, Another small business tyrant down. Oh? So small businesses are tyrannical now too. It's not just the evil CEOs. Are any businesses allowed to exist in these people? Are they all evil and bad? I think we know the answer. They're probably like literal communists, but it's really quite something to see somebody's small business where they're already paying people like $17 plus an hour destroyed by progressive government policies and be like, yes, you're sick in the head, babe. Sick in the head. This next one is wild, and it comes to us from a sitting member of Congress, Pramila Jayapal. She tweeted an image of a McDonald's on fire in California with the caption, "Corporations got us into this mess, but even they can't escape the devastating reality of climate change." Bruh. Not a politician taking like a gloating victory lap over some small business owner. Guys, this is probably a franchisee having their business destroyed in a wildfire. Girl, what? Are you okay? And I'm sorry, but McDonald's is not responsible for the wildfires in California or for global warming. Like, that's not a thing. And the real causes of the LA fires are a lot more complicated than just climate change, okay? It has a lot more to do with environmental policies, with wildfire prevention policies, with water policies, with land policies. Spare me this cheap category of kind of sadistic tweeting from sitting US members of Congress. Christ. Oh my, this next one might be the most delusional of all. There was a post, Mark Zuckerberg removes transgender and non-binary themes from Meta's Messenger, is the story, to which somebody commented, Americans experience 6 months of high inflation and drag the whole world into fascism. Yeah, because if there aren't non-binary color schemes in Facebook Messenger, then that's fascism. There was a similar post over on Reddit where the story shared was Mark Zuckerberg orders removal of tampons from men's bathrooms at Meta offices. And one of the top comments was, so he's going all in with fascism? I don't think that word means what y'all think it means. Fascism is not when the men's bathroom doesn't have tampons in it. It's actually something else. And you might want to pick up a book. Guys, I don't think I can handle any more delusional posting in one sitting without incurring permanent brain damage. But please do let me know which one of these takes was the craziest of all of them. Vote in the comments. And do hit that like button while you're at it. Do make sure you're subscribed. And we'll talk again on Monday.